I should say the patient Representative Barkis, please join us.
Thank you, Chair Paulette. You know, when I first arrived in the legislature, I served on this committee for a brief time. So it's I just got to relive my past here by being with you all. I just want to thank you for the opportunity to present House Bill 1233. Appreciate Representative's question. You'll hear a little bit of input from some of the people testifying today. Getting a chance to hear the other bills, some of which I'm working on. We know that we have a housing crisis. This crisis has been in full bloom even before the crisis of COVID made it worse by all the things that we've been living through. I think if you've heard one thing today, you've heard a cry for more flexibility. You've heard a push and a charge that we need to act as legislators on legislation to get at this crisis by many different fronts. This is just another tool in the toolbox, guys. This is a bill that we talked about last year. It had good support. As you can see, it works within the GMA. It provides that they have to work within the comprehensive planning within the counties, but it provides some flexibility. And if you think of a piece of property that was once bound by this particular law as it is today, and things have changed, there is a better, higher use for that piece of property. And it could be developed into, like I said, a small cottage industry. It could be some more housing of some type. This flexibility is needed today. We see this throughout. Of course, we want to preserve the rural component. We want to make sure that we have those safeguards in place. We want to make sure that sprawl, all the things that the GMA was originally put in place to do. But times are changing. The GMA needs to change. We've seen this through the recent studies with Ruppelhaus. We've seen this through legislation that we've worked on together to make it better for what needs to be done. This has a huge component for a lot of these rural counties. In my own district, we have areas up in the 2nd district that this would be applicable right away, whether it is that piece about the tourism, whether it is a piece about joining what are now known as economic sinkholes or islands, because they're just not being used in the way that they were told to be used originally. And so now we need some flexibility to change that while working within that. I would encourage your support of this. I want to thank Representative Griffey for working with me on this. And for the chair, I want to thank you for hearing this bill and the other bills and taking the lead on addressing the housing crisis that our state is going through. And I look forward to seeing this move on. As I always say, I'm willing to bring forth any changes that your committee might look at and suggest. And as we see this move through the process. Thank you.
Any questions for Representative Barkis? Representative Gaynor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Barkis, for bringing this forward. Flexibility is great. One of the concerns that have arisen through Lambert's or the utility services, do you speak to that at all with the flexibility? And what I'm referring to specifically is like a city can't, extend urban services outside of a UGA, even if Lambert is relatively close and they want to take advantage of that. Is that addressed at all in this bill?
I believe it is, because it has to work within the limits of what's provided. So that would be a consideration when working within the comp plan of what is existing, what services are existing. But it is a good question, Representative Gaynor. And we can certainly make sure that is addressed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Rep. Barkis, how, and this may be a dumb question, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
I know, dumb question.
How does it address transportation infrastructure? Because as you know, being the ranking member on transportation, we are not able to meet the needs for roads, both preservation and maintenance, and just building new. And so I wondered how it addresses potential need for expansion.
Well, again, thank you, Representative. It's a good question. It's part of planning. They have to address both in mitigating any impacts on traffic, what is existing, what would need to be brought in. Those communities, those counties would have to plan for that and make sure that is accommodated. These exist today. They're already there. They're just being used for different things. What this bill does is change that use. And I know that some of the contention that you may hear from my good friend who's going to testify today, that we've worked on a lot of bills together, and is the flexibility and just being able to adapt to what's happening in today's marketplace, in today's environment, whereas it changed from what it was originally intended to be 10, 20 years ago. So I'm sure that transportation is one of the elements that has to be addressed when planning.